Welcome back to Exposed Stories Media. There are truths that never appear right before our eyes, but instead silently hide beneath the veneer of family bonds. Have you ever wondered if the innocent younger sister you spent 20 years protecting was actually the person standing behind you with a knife? I once chose to ignore every unusual sign until a story about family betrayal, written by my own sister, flipped my entire world upside down. It wasn't merely a sibling rivalry, it was a cold, calculated plot to strip me of everything I owned. Today, I will peel back each layer of this mask of betrayal to show you that, sometimes, the most dangerous enemy is the one who shares your blood. Everything began on a quiet morning in June 2025. I woke up to find my name being dragged across every social media forum with the most poisonous words imaginable. My sister, Elena, had posted a tearful account claiming she was physically abused by her older brother and robbed of her rightful inheritance. The post reached over 1 million shares within hours, turning me into a public villain almost instantly. These baseless yet convincing accusations cost me my career and left me completely isolated by my neighbors. I stood in the eye of a storm of public outrage, unable to comprehend what I had done wrong to the sister I had once sacrificed everything for. Looking back at the past, the cracks in the foundation had actually appeared as early as 2008. That was the year our father passed away in a horrific accident, leaving behind an insurance payout and our childhood home for the two of us. At that time, because I believed so deeply in Elena's vulnerability, I signed numerous power of attorney documents without ever reading the fine print. I assumed they were just routine administrative papers to cover our mother's medical bills and Elena's education. I threw myself into work day and night to compensate for the loss our family suffered, but in return, the financial demands only grew higher. Whenever I questioned the expenses, Elena used her tears and her supposed sacrifices to make me feel overwhelmed with guilt. The suspicion within me began to grow when our mother passed away in 2024. Before her final breath, she tried to grab my hand and pointed toward the old wooden cabinet in the living room with an expression full of inner turmoil. I didn't understand her meaning then, but after Elena's shocking post, I knew I had to return to that house to find the answers. On the night of June 15, 2025, I secretly returned to my childhood home, which Elena had kept locked tight. Under the dim light of a flashlight, I found the secret compartment behind the wooden panel of the cabinet my mother had pointed to. Inside was a stack of bank statements and handwritten letters from my father, dating back to 2009. The numbers on the bank statements made my blood run cold as I realized the entire insurance sum of 2 billion Vietnamese dong had been drained long ago. The person making the transactions was none other than Elena, using the very power of attorney forms I had signed during my deepest moments of grief. Even more horrific, she had secretly transferred the house title to a shell company as early as 2012. My father's letters, written in his final days, exposed a heartbreaking truth about my sister's nature. He had early on recognized Elena's tendency for psychological manipulation and deceiving her loved ones for material gain. My father urged my mother to protect me, but perhaps she was too weak or had been under Elena's control for all those years. I decided not to confront her with violence but chose instead to appear at the launch of Elena's new book at the end of June. There, in front of hundreds of reporters, she was still calmly playing the role of the victim abandoned by her brother. I stepped onto the stage without saying a word, and quietly projected the authentic evidence onto the large hall screen for everyone to see. Silence filled the room as the bank figures and my father's handwriting appeared clearly for all to witness. Elena's face shifted from confidence to a deathly pale, then distorted with pure rage as she was unmasked. She began to scream, but that very action unintentionally confirmed to everyone that everything I had just presented was the absolute truth. Justice was finally served as the authorities launched an investigation into Elena's fraud and defamation. All the misappropriated assets were seized, and the false social media posts were removed along with a public retraction. But for me, This victory brought no joy, only an infinite sadness over the total destruction of a sibling bond. The greatest lesson I learned was to never let emotion cloud your logic when faced with unusual signs. Family is sacred, but transparency and respect are the only things that keep that bond from being corrupted by greed. Always ask questions when you see murky behavior, because today's silence can be a very high price to pay for your future. My story closes as a warning to anyone placing absolute trust in a relative without any oversight. Do not wait until it is too late to begin seeking the truth, because sometimes that truth will hurt more than any lie ever could. Thank you for listening and joining us on this journey to bring the darkness into the light. Please don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next shocking stories on Exposed Stories Media. Your support is the motivation for us to continue searching for and bringing the truth to light. Goodbye, and we will see you in the next broadcasts on our channel. My journey for justice did not stop at old letters. I began to realize that to transfer the title of the house in 2012, Elena could not have acted alone. She needed the help of a professional, someone who knew exactly how to turn forged documents into legally binding instruments. I tracked down the retired lawyer who had handled my father's original will, located in a quiet, secluded alley of the city. There, I met an elderly man who still clearly remembered Elena's face when she visited him back in 2009. He revealed a shocking truth. Elena had attempted to submit a fake will, but he had rejected it because the signature did not match. However, Elena did not stop there. She found a corrupt notary to legalize her fraudulent files in August 2011. The culprit was not just a greedy sister, but an entire network of predators exploiting the ignorance of their own family members. Every document I found was a puzzle piece exposing the cruelty of a plan nurtured for over a decade. Revisiting my father's final diary entries from 2008, I truly understood the agony of a man who knew he was dying but couldn't protect his only son. My father had discovered Elena stealing from his retirement fund when she was only 17 years old. He had intended to discipline her, but my mother, blinded by love, always covered for her and lied to protect her daughter. My father wrote in tears that he felt guilty for leaving a seed of greed in his own home. He predicted that after his death, I would be the next target for Elena's schemes. Those smudged lines, blurred by my father's tears, served as a belated warning, making me realize I had been far too naive to believe in the concept of a perfect family. In the process of gathering evidence, I reached out to an old neighbor, a retired teacher who had lived next door to us for 30 years. She recounted that in 2015, she had seen Elena secretly moving large crates of documents out of the house in the middle of the night. At the time, Elena told her they were just our father's old things being donated to charity, but in reality, they were the original land ownership records. The teacher also provided a crucial piece of information. Elena frequently held mysterious meetings with strangers at our house whenever I was away on business trips. These were people specialized in vulture real estate, buying land from families embroiled in disputes or legal loopholes. Elena wasn't just deceiving me. She was conspiring with shady organizations to sell off our ancestral heritage for a fraction of its value. As the story reached its climax at the press conference, I began to dismantle the psychology of a professional manipulator. Elena didn't just use tears. She used a technique called victim-blaming reversal. She always made me believe that every hardship in her life was my fault, from her inability to attend college to her struggles in caring for our mother. In reality, in 2010, it was Elena who proactively dropped out of school, even though I had paid her full tuition for the first semester. She used that money to invest in illicit financial schemes, and when she lost it all, she turned around and blamed me for not providing enough support. The truth was that Elena had built a mental prison for me, where I lived in constant guilt so she could easily control me and seize our assets. In October 2025, the case was officially brought to public trial after investigators gathered enough evidence. Elena no longer possessed her glamorous appearance or sharp rhetoric. She stood in the dock with a hollow face and absolute loneliness. The accomplices who had helped her forge the documents were also arrested, unmasking a fraud ring that had spanned over a decade. The court sentenced Alina to 5 years in prison and ordered her to return all illegally seized assets to the family. But more important than the legal sentence was the moral judgment she had to face before society. The reputation she had painstakingly built on a foundation of lies crumbled entirely, leaving a costly lesson on how greed can turn a loved one into the most terrifying stranger. As the trial ended, I walked out of the courthouse on a pale November afternoon. I looked up at the sky and felt an unprecedented sense of relief, a true freedom from carrying the weight of someone else's lies. I had lost a sister, but I had found myself, restored justice for my late father, and brought peace to my mother's memory. Thank you to everyone on Exposed Stories Media for following this arduous journey of mine. This story is a reminder that the light of truth may arrive slowly, but it will always incinerate the darkness of deception. Never be afraid to stand up for yourself, for it is the only way you can truly live a meaningful and complete life. Goodbye for now, and we will see you in the next stories.